is a live copyrighted presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time now for RadioLawTalk.com with your host, Frederick Penny, attorney at law. And now, RadioLawTalk.com.
Happy Veterans Day. Thank you from Radio Law Talk and all the hosts to you veterans who sacrifice your life, your time, your energy, your effort, and your family life for us to enjoy the freedoms. Radio Law Talk, we are not political. When you're tired of politics radio, roll in here and we're going to talk about the general law and the latest topics on the law, and we will have fun doing it, and we're a little bit crazy. Welcome Denise Dirks to my right, a family law lawyer out of California. I am Frederick Penny. I'm a personal injury lawyer. And we have Todd Kunin to the left, who is a criminal lawyer, former prosecutor for the District Attorney's Office in Tennessee and in California. I am barred in California and in the big Washington, D.C., where all the politicians are. And then over there in the corner. That means
you can practice in California and Washington, D.C., not that you can't go there.
True.
You know, Fred, I forgot to mention, in light of the fact that we have the new stations from the state of Nevada that we are listening to, I actually started my legal career clerking for the Nevada Transportation Services Authority in Sparks, Nevada. I worked there for a year and then worked down in Las Vegas up until 2001 when I came back. So I started my career, I wasn't an attorney, I was a clerk out there in the state of Nevada.
And in Las Vegas, you're doing other things that you can't talk about?
That I cannot talk about. There's a reason I was only there for 9 months. 10 months.
Can we talk about Chris Rodriguez?
We can. Let's do that. Let's just,
And then Chris Rodriguez, one of our top Harvard trial lawyers, we love having him here because he sits in the corner and just pops off and says things when we don't need him to say things. But he is a great employment lawyer, corporate lawyer, litigation business lawyer, and just a general civil practice guy. He charges much more than all the rest of us combined. Oh, did I say that?
Well, it's very well worth it.
Yes.
I'll give you my phone number. Look it up on the website. It'll be posted on the website.
Here you go. So we're sacrificing time from our families to be here to talk about the latest issues going on in the world, and actually mainly in the United States and the West Coast. We do a lot about the West Coast of the legal issues, and we just talked about Johnny Depp. This is our second hour. We've already killed 1 hour. We're going to talk about an Alabama Walmart trip and fall, $7.5 million verdict. We're going to talk about apps, whether or not they fall under the ADA, the American Disabilities Act. We're going to talk about veterans' legal rights. For those of you veterans out there, listen up. We're going to talk about your rights and any issues that may come up about disabilities and how you can make claims and or where you can go to find a lawyer that specializes in that area of law.
And we'll probably be talking about Todd Kunin's dating life as well.
That'll take about 30 seconds.
Yeah,
because that's so
one of those.
slow.
It's one of those micro segments that almost bears no mention at all, because it is. If you imagine a black hole, a vacuum in space, that is the equivalent of my data. It's where light does not escape. It is nothing.
I thought it was one of the enumerated exceptions to the American with Disabilities Act.
Yes, I have no ADA claims filed against me. So
we will talk about the Las Vegas shootings, and we'll update what's going on with the Las Vegas shooting. That's nothing to laugh about generally, but there's some very interesting things going on there. We're going to talk about a driverless shuttle, the first one in Las Vegas that gets in a crash, and the liability on that issue. Remember, we're talking about general law, and if you need advice about any legal issue, go seek a local counsel in your state and or in your county, because we're just talking about the general law. And between you and I, there's so much to talk about when you discuss any case. You can never cover it or never properly handle the issues here on the radio, especially when Rodriguez can't figure out who sings what song, let alone a legal issue. You know, so Cal, do we have any songs we can queue up where Rodriguez can try to name the song and name it the wrong artist?
I don't want to embarrass Chris in front of our new audience in Nevada, really, but I'll find something.
You
That's
mean besides
really
the
nice.
last hour and 10 minutes? Any more so than we've already done today?
Hey, Cal,
go ahead.
are we going to have a case or no
Well,
case
I'm going to
this
get there,
hour?
but let's thank
Sure.
Nevada Talk Radio Network, the NTN, for joining us, and KNNR, KNNT, KELY, KAVB, and KPKK. And guess what? There are more down the pike. They're going to be joining us. Radio Law Talk's taken off. Boys and girls, men and women, except for the 20-year-olds who don't like us.
What is the name of the valley that we're on? What is it? The Appalachia Valley? What is it?
No, the Amargosa Valley.
Amargosa
Valley.
Okay.
Welcome, Amargosa Valley
Yes.
in Nevada.
Yes.
Great. So go ahead. So we have this fun segment called Case or No Case where Cal is going to tee up some case or no case. We don't know if it's a real case, and we're going to try to figure out if it's a case and what the verdict's going to be. And Cal nailed us the last hour, and it was a fake case that we all fell for. Cal, roll the tape.
Now it's time to play Case or No Case.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
That's
I take
Fred.
you.
Doesn't that say Fred?
It does indeed. I take you to the
that's
great state of Idaho, Potatoville, USA.
Idaho.
My land of my birth. To the
Hence the reason we have no affiliates in Idaho that have picked us up because you're on the air.
I was on TV there for many moons.
What part of Idaho?
I was born in Oakley, Idaho, which is southeastern Idaho by Twin Falls and Burley in that general area.
Oh, next to Twin Falls and Burley. The people in New York know where that is.
The metropolis of Twin Falls and Burley.
Well, you asked. That's how we identify it in Idaho. Or as Idahoans say, not Twin Falls, but right by Twin. I right by Twin.
Yeah, right in between California and
Nowhere.
No.
Right in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, right. All right. So Moscow, Idaho, which is on the other side of the state. Home, ironically, of the University of Idaho Vandals.
Right. I like them.
A college student is getting rambunctious in the third floor of his dormitory and decides it would be a fun thing to do to press his keister against the window, a vandal moon, shall we say.
Keister, Rodriguez, for those of you outside the Rodriguez or in the Rodriguez realm, that means your arm.
Okay, this is my area. All right,
is
like I do a lot of things in the law, but this is my area.
This is
I have. You know, growing up in Winters, California, okay, rural farm town.
A lot of keisters.
I probably could take up the next 2.5 hours just telling.
Really?
Pressing your keister against a window story. I mean,
Really?
there's multiple. Oh, absolutely. But go ahead. Sorry, Cal.
And you would talk. They didn't do that at Harvard.
I did it a few times at Harvard.
Oh, what about MIT people? They did that.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, no, not MIT.
Chris
weren't
Rodriguez, the keister specialist.
Keister law.
Third story, bum on window. Window gives way.
Oh.
He falls. And, of course, the property is sued for failing to warn of an unsafe condition that existed, that the windows were not labeled as such that would have prevented someone from pressing their bum up against the window.
Who sued? You said property is sued.
Well, let me get this. Let's see. Oh, they actually sued the university for failing to provide a safe place. I know this is not.
So this is like a dorm? Was this like a dorm room?
This is the safe space argument on
Not
political
safe space, no.
college campuses
No.
has been expanded to include keister laws.
Not safe space.
Chris
It's safe
Rodriguez will be
place.
bringing the keister bunny.
So this is at University of Idaho in Moscow.
Correct.
And
State-owned property.
The Vandals, which sounds appropriate for this case.
Ironic, isn't it?
And his keister, or better known as Chris Rodriguez area of the law, is up against the window, and it gives way.
He falls out. Third
does it
story.
give way or does it break?
Third story. I'm not sure if it fell out, if the window popped out, or if it broke. But either way, down he goes 3
All right.
stories. Gets hurt
3
a little
stories.
bit.
Gets
yeah.
hurt a little bit. Okay.
And this is actually pretty good. In Winters, we call this a BA. Right? I don't know what you guys call it. This is what we've always called it. Some people call it a moon. We call it a BA. It is also ironic that we're talking about, a BA at the University of Idaho.
Exactly.
Some people get a BA from the University of Idaho. Some people give a BA at the University
We'll
of
be
Idaho.
right back to find out case or no case, how we vote, and if it's a new case, if it's a real case or not.
Hey, tweet us at Radio Law Talk and chime in.
all around the world. This is RadioLawTalk.com.
Radio Law Talk. I like that show.
Case or no case? The bum up against the window in Moscow, Idaho, University of Idaho Vandals. Shout out to Coach Don Verlin, my good friend, who is the head basketball coach for the University of Idaho.
Now
Vandals.
he is?
He is, right now.
That's
Don
great.
Verlin.
That's
a
great.
friend of mine. So Don, I don't know if he listens to the show or not. So leaning up against it, Cal, right? And it gives way, and he falls 3 stories.
Yeah, and it just says, the information that I have just says the window gave way. And it was contended that the university failed to provide a safe environment for students who may be involved in hijinks.
Okay, before we get to this, I think we should turn to Rodriguez as the most important person that can read Cal and figure out if Cal is faking or not.
Well, yeah, if you were here last hour, you know that that's not true. But I'll say but again.
But because after all, that's what we're talking about. Yes. Nice and subtle.
This is a case, and I believe that the University of Idaho is responsible because, and we talk about this concept of foreseeability in the law, right? And you know, as a personal injury lawyer, if you're going to sue somebody for something bad that happened, that bad outcome needed to be foreseeable. I think on a college campus, especially one as distinguished as the University of Idaho, that you are going to get students that press their butt cheeks up against the window. That is something that should be foreseeable, and I believe by failing to put in properly enforced windows, the University of Idaho does have a legal responsibility to this family to cover whatever damages have been caused by this fine, upstanding student falling out of the window.
3rd-story window,
yes.
No less.
Yes. So I'm going to say case.
All right, Todd Cunin, case or no case?
Well, that question has plagued mankind since the beginning of time. And I'm going to say that I say it's a case, and I'll tell you why. I think that the, as Chris so eloquently put it, butt cheek issue, I believe...
Is that legal to say that word on radio,
I
Cal?
don't know.
Yes, it is.
We have insurance, too, so that's something.
I believe that in this day and age of college hijinks, that perhaps even the hijinks is a red herring issue. Because the
Will
question
you take a picture of him doing this and tweet it out while he's doing it, please?
Because the question
Good.
here
Seth, tweet this
is
out.
whether or not the window could bear any weight whatsoever.
Stand up. You don't have to do this. Take the picture. You missed the picture. Tweet it out. Stand up, Rod.
Rodriguez,
See, Rod, just stand up. Pretend.
It just mooned him
Just
right
go.
there. Yeah, thank you.
There we go.
Okay,
Degree of difficulty
2. Yeah.
2. I think that the whole thing about the cheeks against the window to a certain extent is, I mean, I guess it's relevant, but maybe not relevant. The issue here is whether or not the window was at danger of falling out if any weight was put against it. Because people lean against windows all the time. They put their head against the window. Sometimes you do that thing where you blow against it and your mouth gets all, you know, when you were kids, you used to do stuff like that. And so if this window was at a risk for falling out under any sort of pressure, and I can't imagine that the tushy up against the window is any greater pressure than, you know, pushing against it or pounding on it to wave to somebody. If this thing was at a risk of falling out, there weren't proper warnings that the window will not bear any weight and this thing might fall out, I think the university is liable. I clearly think that it is foreseeable that somebody would put weight against the window.
All right. Well, Denise Dirks, case or no case?
Well, I think I want to stay with my streak of losing since I have not at all, not even once, gotten this right. But you said it was a failure to warn. That's what I got out of that. Failure to warn. So should there have been a warning label on the window that says putting pressure on the window or weight on the window could result in the window opening too far and you falling out, or some kind of a warning sign. So because you said that and you used those words, and he's looking at me like, Denise, you're going to get it wrong again.
I didn't know. I'm not. I'm a
looks
difficult
like it.
person to read, as we've already proven.
I'm going to say it's not a failure to warn. I'm going to say no failure to warn, and it's not a case.
But
so it's a case, but he loses.
I want to clarify.
No case.
I want to clarify. I said two things: failure to warn and failure to provide a safe place. Okay, there were two elements there. I want to make sure that so when you give your opinion, I want to make sure that both are taken into account. I'm not trying to sway you either way. I just want to make sure that both are.
Okay, well, then I'll answer the failure to provide a safe place. And in that particular case, I don't think that the windows, because it opens up, is a failure to provide a safe place.
Fred Penny, attorney at law, case.
Ooh, I'm the guy.
Case. By the way, I want to put out a quick disclaimer. When you hear radio advertisements on Radio Law Talk, these are for California-only legal entities. I want to make sure that's clear before we go forward.
You know what's interesting about that, Cal, is we've talked about this, and before I get into that, the radio show's taken off. It's taken off so fast, we're trying to stay on top of it. We're trying to stay on top of all the people, all the stations coming on. So this is what I'm going to say. I'm a personal injury lawyer in California. I'm a barred in California and again in Washington, D.C. But I have partners in the Las Vegas, Nevada area that do handle cases that we receive in Nevada for those Nevada listeners. And we have listeners elsewhere from SRN Radio, et cetera, et cetera. But in general, they're missing the point. All three are wrong. Yes, it's a case. I'm going to say it's a case. But guess what they're missing out on? That's why you hire the personal injury lawyer. It might be a government entity issue. When a government entity is involved, I don't know if it's a private university or if it's a government university. I believe it is the state of Idaho's own university. Therefore, it's a government entity. Government entity has immunities over and above a corporation or any other type of defendant. And they have much higher standards to reach in order to sue them. So my answer is, I say it's a government entity claim. They have immunities. There is such a case. And I'm going to say it's thrown out on a motion for summary judgment. But I don't know Idaho law, but I'm assuming it's the same in all states.
And I would like to say what Seth said, because I think he's right. This guy assumed the risk by using his bare essentials.
Seth is our call screener, walked in and threw it down. But he said, assumed the risk. ASSUM. Okay, we got 15 seconds. It says 15 seconds. So, Cal, at the end of this commercial, come back and tell us the answer, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Alabama trip and fall case.
Call us at 855 Law Radio.
I think that would be fine. We will give you the answer to the case or no case very shortly right here. You have to stay tuned, though, through the bottom of the hour break. And we thank you, of course, for listening to RadioLawTalk.com.
So we were just finished the bottom of the hour, and we want to make sure that we thank Crack Radio in Red Bluff. That is actually true. That's our sister station, our mother station in Red Bluff, KRAC, Crack Radio. Cal, I want you to take a crack at finishing up this.
Get to the bottom of the story, as
case
it were.
And no case.
Okay, well, okay. Of course, just to remind you, this happens in Moscow, Idaho, where a student presses his bum up against the window trying to moon students below 3 stories down. The window gives way. He falls and sues the vandals, the University of Idaho, for whatever damages he alleges that he received. So the question was, is it a case or no case? And so let's do the obvious thing. How many say it is a case? By a show of hands? All but Denise. Denise says it is not a case. This is one of those things that has an answer that will be unsatisfying. Because yes, this young man did in fact file a lawsuit.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
As Fred Penny pointed out.
Yes.
It was dismissed on summary judgment.
Now, those of you out there listening, we have no idea that Cal is bringing this up, and I guarantee you, I bet you it's due to government immunities issues.
You guys are in cahoots, because I don't think it is in relation to government immunities. Government immunities protect the government from making decisions and doing these types of things. If the government installs glass that is unsafe, they're not immune from that.
Wrong. Okay, let me tell you. They're not completely immune, but there are, without an hour discussion, there are certain hoops that have to be jumped through that are more arduous and more difficult to get through than a normal defendant.
I also want to point out this was in Idaho,
right,
which is not exactly known as a lawsuit-friendly environment like, what is it, Missouri and California or whatever the real friendly states are.
Alabama.
Or Alabama now.
Alabama, right.
And they could have contributory negligence, and they could have different issues that could have barred it. But this is what confuses me. I think if they don't win, it's not a case. Like if it gets dismissed on a motion for summary judgment, he may have filed a case, but it's not a case. It's out.
But still, he filed it. That was that's the whole
we
thing.
have to define the rules because, like the shopping cart case in the first hour, it was just made out of whole cloth. It was just all baloney.
Right.
It was clearly not. It was just not a case. So we can maybe work on the rules of case or no case. In fact, you can send us an email at info@radiolawtalk.com if you have an idea for a case we would use, and if we use your case, we'll give you a special award, maybe a pen.
Maybe a pen. But here's the best part. Here's one that should have been a case or no case in Alabama.
Well, hold on, wait, Cal. Was it dismissed for the government claim?
I don't know why.
We don't know why. Okay.
Yeah, but it was dismissed on motion for summary judgment.
I went as deep as I could, but
I'm going to tell you that's what I believe.
It was 1994.
Yeah, and I'm going to believe that's the case. All right, ready for this?
I think he assumed the risk.
Listen. In Alabama, a man tripped and broke his foot and hip while buying watermelons in Walmart in Alabama. He sued, and the decision came down for $2.5 million in compensatory damages that he won, and $5 million in punitive damages. Now, punitive damages, which means they're punishing Walmart, and the red flags for lawyers, and 4 of us sitting here know one thing. That means the jury got ticked off, too. That means someone, I'm thinking from Walmart, and again, I'm not saying this is a fact, I'm just throwing this out, probably was not being very forthright, or it was kind of to the point where it was a little arrogant maybe, and that's what ticks juries off. I'm not saying that happened, but that's a lot of times we know as lawyers we got to be careful of that.
But isn't that true for any big company, especially if you're in a rural area of Alabama and you have somebody with a fancy suit on that comes in to testify on behalf of Walmart? I don't know what that person can do to get the jury pool to like them. They're probably not going to be very well liked.
No, what you do is you pull up with an old pickup that's smoking, and it backfires like Uncle Buck, my favorite show, and you just roll in and trip and fall and act like a normal person. Seth, tweet out that picture of what the Walmart, typical stand of Walmart is with watermelons on it, and they have the pallets underneath it. But this is what happens. What is that? What is the song? Oh, Walmart People. Oh, Walmart People song. All right, so his foot became trapped in the pallet beneath the watermelons. And what the argument was is Walmart should have covered the pallet so it could be not entangled the shoppers. The question is, did Walmart have knowledge of it? And a general premises liability law, the company, let's say Walmart, has to have knowledge of it or should have known about it. And in California, I know there's things called sweep sheets if you slip and fall on water or something. There's sweep sheets where they got to go sign in every half hour or hour that says, yeah, I walked the whole floor. And let me tell you, our firm has handled a lot of those things. And it gets very complicated, but there are certain rules and certain things you got to do. But the question is, was it a dangerous condition that existed that they knew about or should have known about? So I don't know. They're saying it was. I'm going to talk to you about something interesting with Nevada Supreme Court came down with a very similar case, but it was against Costco. And the Supreme Court ruled on it. So, but Walmart basically said, according to the attorneys for the plaintiff, that Walmart just, quote, didn't care. And what they're there to do is to make it safe for shoppers. We don't know all the facts. We don't know everything that happened. But the one issue is, I guess these displays roll in, according to Walmart, from the producer already packaged and ready to be dropped and displayed. You don't really break them up. They're just dropped the way they are.
Yeah, but have you guys ever seen these pallets? I mean, there are gaps in between there, and I can see how somebody could get their foot caught in there and twist, and then their knees going to get blown.
Totally agree. And they're bending over to try to pick up a watermelon on top of that.
Right. And so it sounds like what Walmart's, one of the positions they took at the trial is they said, you're darn right we have a pallet in this display, and In fact, this accident happened 2 years ago, but guess what? We still have that same type of pallet as part of this display. So they were not repentant at all. Their whole position was it's safe, and we'll show you how safe it is. We continue to do it.
Yeah, in Nevada, the Foster v. Costco case is a famous Supreme Court case that they tripped on a wooden pallet in Costco. Same exact thing. But the court basically said, even though it's open and obvious, these are what's called invitees. So a person is not a trespasser. They're invited to come into the business.
So you owe a higher duty.
A higher duty of care and standard. But the dangerous, that even though it's, quote, open and obvious, they should warn them of this danger or do the best they can to alleviate it. I'm sure they can't completely alleviate the trip or the fall or the stick your foot in it, but they can do more to alleviate it.
They could have put it like just a cloth around it that hung down so that it wasn't so easy to get your foot stuck into.
Yeah,
it.
If they put the cloth around it that hung down, then somebody would say, well, I wasn't unable to see that there was not a load-bearing pallet there.
No,
they would claim that they'd find some reason to sue for all that. I agree that they could have done that, but somebody's going to find a reason, or they should put up a warning that people will ignore. And
that's all they need. They should have had the sign, like the cones. When there's throw a cone up, man. Throw a sign that says "warning, slippery," and just have them have hundreds of them all over the store.
But he did it while reaching for this melon.
Right.
So he reached for the melon, and I think Walmart's argument is, look, come on, be reasonable here. We've got these in tens of thousands of stores. Hundreds of thousands of people have reached for a watermelon. Nobody's broken their hip or their foot here. Come on, you'd have to have some risk of liability. When you walk into a store, it's not risk-free on your part. I think that's their argument.
And Cal, that is an argument they will use and they normally use. But then if there are some prior incidences, what we don't know all the details, and I didn't go to this trial, and we've got to be very careful because we don't know the facts of everything. But I bet you there's facts showing that this isn't the first time this has happened, and I bet you there could have been a deposition of a manager, assistant manager, a produce person say, yeah, I've seen people trip over before, and I even mentioned it to management, but they didn't do anything about it. So we don't know that. A lot of that stuff as lawyers, we dig out, and then we as lawyers are there to generally, I know it sounds bad, yeah, we're in it for the money. Of course, we have to feed our families. They're starving, right?
All I'm saying is somewhere in here there is a country song. I was reaching for a melon at Walmart. I stepped on the platform, my foot smarts. Something gave way, I fell to the ground, and now I'm suing with the Idaho State Pound, and something's going to get me at Walmart. All right, I'll just stop right there, Shoot dang, I ain't had this much fun since Big's 8 Grandma.
I'm going to tick off most of our audience.
Right.
But that just proved right there. You, in 4 seconds, put together a credible country song that tells you everything you need to know about country music.
Oh.
It was not bad.
You went there. Did
you guys watch the CMAs the other night?
Yes.
And the guy with the goofy cowboy hat, that was one of the hosts, he sang a song, and I turned to my wife and I said, is that a real song or is that an Arby's commercial? It sounded like an Arby's commercial, but it was a real country song. Anyway,
all I got to say,
the point.
He's making money and he's not getting sued like Johnny Depp is. So we're going to be back. We got one more segment to talk a little bit more about this. We're going to talk about veterans. We're going to get to veterans, and we'll be right back with Radio Law Talk with Frederick Penny and the hosts, and tweet us at Radio Law Talk.
You're listening to RadioLawTalk.com. And now back to your host, Frederick Penny.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some statistics. According to the Department of Veteran Affairs, there are about 22 million veterans living in the United States as of 2014. That's quite a few veterans. I wonder what that was. I should have looked that up, whether it was like in the late 40s, early 50s, probably a lot more from World War II. And we've got some older statistics, but this is the same source. 2013, 3.4 million disabled vets. The cost of care for them was $14.8 billion, and in 2000, In 2000, it was $14.8 billion, and by 2011, it was $39.4 billion to care for the veterans from their disabilities. And we're here to talk a little bit about disabilities of veterans and what happens when you have a disability claim with the VA and the process. And boy, it was arduous. The process used to be, and there's lawsuits there has been lawsuits to get that cleared up so they can quickly get their benefits.
Yeah, before we get into that, I think the state's intentions with respect to veterans, especially in California, is pretty good. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but there is a program, any public contract that goes out to bid. Let's say the government wants to build a prison, or they want to, upgrade their information technology systems. They require the bidders to actually go out and try to find companies that are owned by disabled veterans and bring them in as subcontractors on the project, and there are requirements. So a lot of cool programs out there, and I know a lot of what we're going to be talking about maybe not all that flattering to how these programs are working for veterans, but I think that there is, a legitimate effort to try and make life better for these folks when they come back after serving.
And so should it be, because of what they've done for our country and
Absolutely.
the sacrifices. I've seen it in my family. My father suffered for years, all the way to his death, from his war wounds. It's funny, as kids we'd always look at him kind of funny because he had scarring on his head, and his whole arm was just completely scarred up. And I never really knew. He wouldn't talk about it. And after he passed away, I found his sergeant, his name's Sergeant Snelling, out of the East Coast. And he's in his 90s, and he's still alive. And we never knew. My dad hid everything. And after my mom passed away, we found some of his old photos. And Seth, I think I sent you tweeted a picture of my dad's shadow box. Once you tweet that out. And found out my dad was highly decorated, and he never talked about it. He burned everything. He was so traumatized. But I found out from Lieutenant Snelling that he said, "Oh, your dad was a phenomenal a warrior," and I found out how he's injured. We didn't know. I knew it was mortars. He got hit by a mortar, and he actually fell off into a ditch, and this is in Korea. And that tore up his arm and part of his head. And I remember him saying the bleeding from his head was worse than anything. And I remember him saying this also. I remember him saying, as weird as it sounds, it didn't hurt. It burned. He said it's like a burning sensation, like you're on fire, where the shrapnel and the bullets are coming. And Snelling told me where he got his second wounds, because we didn't know. He was guarding an ammo dump, and the ammo dump got hit and blew up and just took out a whole bunch of the guys guarding. It was one of my dad. So that's what he said. He goes, "I think your dad was one of the ones in the ammo dump." I just found this out like within the past 2 years. My dad's been gone for over 10 years. So thank you, veterans, and what they go through is just phenomenal. But let's talk about how these veterans can go get these disability claims taken care of quickly. So Seth is going to throw up on our Twitter some different sites you can go to. One of them is www.uscourts.ca/representative.php. That is the list of lawyers that handle these appeals to the Veterans Department in order for you to claim disability. So go to that list and find a lawyer that's what they do.
Right. So, but the basic background is that if you are a veteran and you are disabled, you can make a claim against this fund and get payments out of that fund. You have to put in an application. In order to qualify, you have to be a veteran that has this disease or diagnosed disability. There must have been some incident during your active service.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be, in the war at the, shooting at
right. It could be at Beale Air Force Base or wherever you may have been. And then the disability must be service connected, meaning that there must be some sort of you have to prove a causal connection between the incident that occurred during your service and the disability. And so you submit these applications, and then there is a part of the government or a government agency that will review the application and decide yay or nay whether you're entitled to the benefits, and if so, how much benefit you're entitled to.
That's exactly right. So
there's a huge backlog right now in the claims. A lot of times when the veteran comes back, they don't know that they have a claim immediately, and so maybe there's a delay in in making the claim. Because of the delay, it causes further delay, and a lot of times they don't get answers. There's this one gentleman, Leonard K. Jackson, who has been waiting for 15 years to have his disability claim approved or disproved. And
I don't know if it's been approved at this point, but at one time it was. I don't remember if
it was disproved initially, and then he didn't know to appeal, and he had to redo the whole process again.
And President Obama brought that up.
Right. That's right. He was with President Obama at one point. And so right now they think there's more than 44,000 veterans waiting for their disability claims to be, approved and to receive the benefits.
Right. No, so Vietnam veterans, for example, you can talk about the Vietnam veterans, and you can talk about the ones from about Agent Orange. I don't know if you know about the Agent Orange issue, but go ahead, Todd.
The Agent Orange issue back in 1984, there was a settlement fund created. An out-of-court settlement fund created of $180 million for Agent Orange claims, and this was to cover people that believed that they had been exposed in Vietnam between 1962 and 1972. That was the period that it was used there. And in 1984, look, $180 million in 1984 was a huge...
I think that was the largest settlement of all times during that time period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it was huge, but then you look at the total number of claims, because after the fund is created, then people start submitting the claims. 105,000 claims received, and in total, it worked out to about an average of $3,800 per claim.
Wow.
Yeah, and the people that can make the claims were not only the veterans, but the deceased veterans' family members.
But again,
could
think
also
about
make a claim.
Everyone out there thinking about this. You're a veteran, you're disabled from Agent Orange, and you get a $3,000 check.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's million. I mean, if that's just a normal case that I'm representing, I'm shooting for millions, But they only had 3,000 to them.
Yes,
It sounds like a lot of money, but it's not.
Somebody gets $1 million or whatever, millions of dollars because of a melon at Walmart, and Agent Orange claimed to get $3,800. Yeah. That just seems to be pretty disparate treatment there with regard to that. And in 1997, District Court closed the fund down. So that $180 million fund is no longer active for Agent Orange claims.
Right. No.
It actually they distributed all the funds.
Yeah. So the fund is closed. It's done, and if people didn't file a claim, or if there's anything outstanding, there's no money left for them to get anything based upon that claim. So
there's benefit issue and retirement benefit issues related to veterans that also apply for family law, and in California. If the veteran went for disability benefits after a divorce, they could actually cut out the spouse from being able to get part of their retirement, because disability would be not considered to be something that was divisible. It'd be more akin to being a separate property asset for the spouse. So the Supreme Court of the United States in Howell versus Howell said that the states cannot increase the burden on the veteran to have to pay the spouse what they would have gotten under the regular retirement benefits if they chose to get disability benefits after the divorce. And that was a huge impact, because it really impacted all the states, but California in particular, because we're a community property state.
And then one last thing, veterans treatment in criminal law, it's not a benefit per se like we've talked about, but if you are a veteran and you're charged with a crime and you can show that you served in the military, you have a criminal case, and you're experiencing PTSD, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma, substance abuse, or some other mental order, you can apply and usually have your case diverted over to Veterans Court, where if you follow the 12 to 18 month program, you can qualify for a dismissal of the case. So that's the way that criminal courts have recognized that sometimes these things happen because of mental issues that our soldiers come back with.
Remember, we talk about the generalities of the law. If you need to get some specific legal advice about your circumstances, look for a local attorney that can help you.
Yeah, the next hour, we're almost done with this hour. The next hour, we're going to talk about whether or not apps fall under the ADA. We're going to talk about the Las Vegas shootings, the latest that's going on there with the law, and the driverless shuttle in Las Vegas that crashed its first day. I'm Fred Penny. We'll be right back with Radio Law Talk. in our third hour.
And listening to RadioLawTalk.com, a copyrighted presentation of Radio Law Talk Incorporated.